What is going on, friends? It is Ben with Bearded Spruce back for another tutorial video. Today we're actually going to make a really cool coffee table. Right now I have a coffee table that I made, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and we're just kind of getting bored of it. I think we're going to bring it up to the mountain house to have up there. It's super cool, but it's time for a change. And so we're actually going to be building this coffee table out of teak. If you don't know anything about teak wood, it is super unique. It's very beautiful, as you can see right here. I actually got this at Lowe's. You can get it in a few different sizes, and I'll show you the different sizes that I need for this project. All the material lists and links to Lowe's, the actual items that I purchased are in the description below, so definitely check those out, along with a cut list to get you guys through this project. I'll talk through it as I go, but obviously it's hard to remember and write it down as you're watching. So teak is super unique. Not only is it beautiful, as you can see here, and super fun, grainy material, but it's actually very good for wet applications, which I thought, I love the look. And on top of that, putting glasses down, with water rings and all that kind of stuff, it's super easy to treat with some teak oil to keep it looking fresh. And I thought it would just be kind of a cool project to take on. For the design, as you could see in the thumbnail, is a hexagon base. And so I'm gonna have to cut these a certain way to be the base, and then a circle top, which I got a really cool jig for my router to try out, cutting a circle top out of a square piece that I'll do later in this video. So let's get rolling. I'm gonna take this wrap off to get the first cut done, and then we'll dive into the whole design of the project. All right, so for the base of the table, I'm gonna make a hexagon like I mentioned, and each one of the pieces is going to be 8 inches wide. The reason I picked that is because I wanted it to be 16 inches wide, like the circumference of it. So, cool fact about hexagons, back to geometry class, is one side of a hexagon, so my 8 inches, right, that I'm gonna make each piece of these. If you multiply that by 2, then it's the full circumference, and I'll explain that when I put it together. But that's super easy math to remember, 2x each side of the hexagon equals the full circumference. So I'm gonna make these. To do so, to connect them to be a perfect hexagon, you wanna set your miter gauge on your table saw or whatever other saw that you're ripping this wood with at a 30-degree angle. And it takes a little trial and error to figure out exactly how much to bring in the fence here. So far, I'm thinking about, I don't know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 from 16, and when you're kind of messing with it, that will make sense to you. But I'm gonna rip this first corner, and I'm trying my best to take as little of material off as possible, because I want these to all be 8 inches, and this is only a 16-inch board, so we gotta be really careful. So I'm gonna rip these, and then we'll come back for the next step. Really quick before I start cutting, make sure that you have all of your protection equipment. I got my safety glasses, some earbuds, and then I almost forgot it, but a mask. So I'll link all these in the description below, but make sure that you are safe when you're using any kind of tool. So let's get ripping. perfect. As you can see, I ripped it exactly at a 30-degree angle and pretty much just kissed the top edge. So I'm actually going to need at least 2 of these boards. So I'm going to go ahead and rip the other one now, and then we'll get into the other cuts since my fence is perfectly adjusted to rip this second time.
So as you can see here, I'm starting to rip the smaller pieces down to size. Make sure as you're using a table saw like this that the blade is just a little bit taller than your material that you're cutting through. That ensures the least amount of resistance. If you have a huge blade sticking out the top, then it's actually a lot less efficient when you're cutting. And I'm going to repeat this process with all 4 cuts because they're all going to be exactly the same size. Then you can see here I'm grabbing one of the pieces that already has a cut edge, making sure that the top of the piece is the broader side, and then I'm running it through my table saw just like everything else to cut that final edge off of this piece.
I've cut all of these 4 different pieces to 30-degree angle bevels and 8 inches on the longest side. Now I gotta cut it down to the height. So total height with the top, I'm aiming for 18 inches, which is on the taller side of things for a coffee table. But I want to actually make a smaller second one, a second version of this that will be shorter, that can kind of tuck under on the side of this one. So I'm gonna make this one on the taller side. So I'm gonna cut each piece of the base down to 17 inches. Total for these dimensions before I cut them was 16 inches wide by 36 inches tall. And so each board that I've cut down will actually be 2 of the sections. I need 6 total, so we're gonna cut those and then we'll come back and assemble.
You can see here that I am going really slow and making multiple passes as I cut this piece to ensure that I don't have a lot of tear out when I'm cutting these. And then I'm using the one that I just cut as a template for the next piece to ensure that they're all exactly the same size.
Okay, we cut all of the individual mitered pieces to 17 inches so they all match, and I haven't glued anything or attached anything, but I kind of wanted to show you before I glued it up. So you want to make sure that you have a really super flat surface. I just put an old piece of plywood on top of my saw stop, and then you want one of these ratchets. I'll link to in the description below. This is a special woodworking ratchet that doesn't put any grooves from, if you have other ratchets for your truck or something like that, they have the little S hooks that are rubberized, and those tend to put little divots in the side of the wood. So make sure you grab at least one of these, and then I'll show this video, but I'm just gonna glue everything up, and then I'm actually going to, you could stop at the gluing stage, but I'm actually gonna use a brad nailer to help make sure that that is all nice and tight after I have it all cinched up. So let's get into the assembly and we'll move on. Now that we have it all kind of mocked up, I'm gonna glue each edge as I assemble it in the circle, and then we'll nail it together after we get it nice and tight and move on. So when I'm gluing, I typically do a little bead all the way and then just kind of spread it with my finger or a little brush. I'm out of foam brushes, so I'm going to just use my finger today. You want to be pretty liberal with the glue because this is what's holding it together, along with the tiny little brad nails, but definitely don't be shy with the glue application. So I'm gonna go all the way around and then I'll have you guys join for the next step. Have the glue applied. You can see I got a little bit on the edge, but we'll clean that off later. I'm gonna get it pretty much in line with where I want it. And then I'm gonna slowly use the ratchet to kind of equalize all of the angles. So as you kind of mess with it and get all the angles connected correctly, it's kind of a never-ending puzzle. So what I'm gonna do is bring this up just a little bit. I wanna make sure that it's completely flat against, there's no like twists or turns on the ratchet strap. And I'm just gonna be really gentle here. So what you're aiming for is for complete uniformity. And now that the bottom is pretty much all nice and perfect, I'm gonna come back with my brad nailer and connect the bottom, and then I'll move the ratchet strap up to the top and get that guy all lined up. I'm just gonna go a few all the way around to hold the bottom in place. And then do the same thing with the top. Once you have it all brad nailed together and all glued up, you want to make sure that you wipe off as much excess glue at this point as possible. It's called squeeze out, and squeeze out is good because as you are applying the glue, you want full coverage, and to really know if you have full coverage or not, the squeeze out, the times that you see the glue kind of seeping out of the edge that I've already cleaned off, is a good sign. So make sure that that is happening. If not, you might not have enough glue on that surface for a good bond. So now that it's all put together, this is going to sit in my shop and just rest for about 24 hours before I do anything with it. And we'll move on to the top. So while the base is drying and curing and that glue is hardening up, I'm going to cut the top. And in the design that you've seen, you know, in the card, I wanted a circle on top. So the hexagon and circle kind of play well together. To do a circle, you can find them, but not in the right size. I wanted 22 inches and I wanted to stick with the same wood. And so I bought this 24 by 24 inch piece. It's 1 inch thick, which I think will look really nice. And then all I have to do is cut a circle. And to do that, I got this jig from Jasper. It's on Amazon. I'll link to in the description below. I've never used it before, so we're gonna do this together, but it seems super simple. I'll also link to the model of router in the description below as well. And I've set it up according to the instructions. It comes with somewhat decent instructions. It's definitely not all-inclusive for every router out there, but it does a lot of them. So I've got it attached. I've also got a bit in there, and it said on the instructions to minimize the cuts and kind of control the depth a 1/4 of an inch at a time. Unfortunately, mine is a little bit thicker than that, or a little bit deeper than that to begin with. So hopefully there's not too much tear out. But what we're going to do is it's basically a little pin system. So you measure exactly how long you want the circumference to be that's marked on the other side of here. And then you use this pin. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus. on it. You use this pin that I matched up with one of my drill bits to be almost identical. I think this is I think it's like 1/8 of an inch. I can't quite read it, but just grab a bit that makes sense to match up the size, and I found the exact center of this board, and we're just going to drill not all the way through. One note before I get started, so you're going to want to drill and do this work on the bottom of this piece of wood, whatever you're using. You don't want to drill all the way through because I don't want a hole in the top of my table. So I'm going to drill a hole here, just I don't know, 1/2 inch or so. All right, so once you have the pin in, then all you have to do is set the pin in the correct hole. For me, it's going to be 22 inches. And then once you plug your router in, which I'll do in a second, you just have to slowly go around in a circle, and it should be pretty easy. So we'll find out. Here we go. Definitely worth a look for this jig. I would say it's definitely worth the money. I think it was 70 bucks-ish. Like I said, it's in the description below to check out the current pricing, but it did awesome. I did 3 passes, definitely take it slow. Now I just need to clean up the edges with some sandpaper, and this thing is, from my point of view, a perfect round circle. So definitely worth taking a look at that jig. The way I'm going to attach this to the top piece is some pocket holes. And I think this will be the easiest way to ensure that it's connected and a strong attachment, as well as in the future if I want to unassemble it and swap out the top or do something to the base or something like that, I can easily do that. So I'm going to do the pocket hole here, and I'm doing every one on every single panel. So now that I assembled it, so I did the pocket holes and then just screwed them into the bottom. I've done 1 coat of finish, and I wanted to show you guys how it's turning out so far. I just sanded it to get any rough edges off of any of the corners, and then I just made sure everything was super smooth. I started at 80 grit and worked my way up to 200 grit sandpaper, and then I am using this product. It's also from Lowe's. You can get it at Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon. And then I just got some rags here and the key to this product right here is, 1, it doesn't change or tint the color of the wood, so it keeps everything natural. According to the instructions, you do 1 coat and then wait 24 hours and do a 2nd coat. And it really just brings out the natural beauty of the wood. All right, so to use this product, all you need to do is dampen the cloth with a little bit of the oil, and you want to go with the grain, and just take your time. Make sure that as you're applying the product, it gets full coverage. And if you go against the grain a little bit, just kind of go back and rub it in with the grain. You want to do a little extra on the edges because the end grain always soaks up more of this, really any finish that you apply to wood. Overall, this was a pretty fun project. I'll link to all the tools and jigs and materials that I used in the description below, as well as a cut list. I hope that you guys try this table design out. I'm definitely going to make a second one that's a little shorter that can kind of nest in the side of it. But I wouldn't change anything about this design or the wood I used. This teak turned out so beautiful when I used this tung oil rub-on finish. I'm gonna go put this in my living room, but just wanna say thank you so much for joining. I appreciate all of you, especially when you're sticking around to the end of this video. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, check out some other projects that I've done in the past. I'm going to continue to not only do fun projects like this, but also I have a bunch of reviews of the tools that I use. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening or whenever you're watching this, and we'll see you next time.